Yeah, it's good. It's good. I was glad I watched it. I had a good time. My review simply says dads everywhere are gonna love Air, and that's the biggest thing about it, right? Like we are that age, and it plays. It's one of those movies that's not gonna miss with people who are 25 to 60, right? Because that Jordan era crowd who maybe we grew up with them, or maybe, I was a baby and I remember my dad telling me about it. Like young people, I don't know how much they're going to get out of it, right? Because it's a period piece. It's 1984. What year is Jordan drafted? 84? No, 82. This whatever year is drafted, right? He's going into the draft. And 84. And so it takes place in that time. And it just hits all those nostalgia buttons. Like I swear, there are 50 needle drops in this thing, and all of them are like 80s hits. And you go, oh, that's a good drop. I get what that's doing there because this scene just happened. So, yeah, I like that. So it's one of those things you watch with a big goofy grin on your face because you're like, I remember this. Michael, this is a movie about Michael Jordan and stuff. Oh, this is great. It doesn't have any depth to it, but it doesn't pretend to, right? It goes back to when you're asking me about Mafia Mama. It's not trying to be a treatise on sports business and the black athlete. And I saw, that's one of the common criticism from people who didn't like it was sometimes I do this too. I am as guilty as anybody. Sometimes we rate a movie or dislike a movie for what we wish it was instead of what it is. And I get that. And a lot of the complaints, and they're rare, but one of the most common ones is it's a story about a bunch of white guys who and how they made Michael Jordan. And I look at it and go, okay, sure, I will buy that 100% if that's a complaint. But that's not the movie doesn't purport to be about Michael Jordan. You said it. He doesn't even show up in the movie. And you can see that as a negative because it's a removal of, instead of this black man who was able in a time where black men were not doing this, able to brand himself and market himself. Now his mama gets a lot of credit for it, but he doesn't. And so you can level that criticism as it and say you're just dismissing everything that Jordan did, and that's okay. But the movie doesn't. It never says this is about Michael Jordan's rise. This is about those dudes at that company and how they hooked up with Michael Jordan. And the very end, I like it, and I counter that criticism with that end part where his mom comes and says he wants a cut of every shoe that's sold with his name on it, and that's what it was. And that company, nobody had ever done that before. And to me, that kind of it doesn't dismiss that criticism because Jordan's still not in it, but it shows you that they acknowledge that Jordan was an active participant in creating this for himself, right? Whereas sometimes people say it acts like Jordan didn't have anything to do with it, and he was the right guy, the right place, and this guy Vaccaro found him, and I'm sure you're familiar with the white savior trope. So I've seen that. I don't dismiss it. I understand it, and I think it's valid. I just don't give it a lot of credence because you have those goofy '80s, Cyndi Lauper, the Bangles, Depeche Mode. You get these like very '80s needle drops, and you go, "There's no way I'm going to take a movie seriously, like not seriously, if it's going to do that all the time." So I think it's super fun. It's a movie you can watch with your basketball buddies, with your dad, with your brother. It's not a movie I'm going to show my kid, even though he loves basketball. I mean, he's 9. Like we're watching Space Jam. He told me tonight. He goes, "Dad, guess what I'm watching?" I said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Rookie of the Year." And I was like, "The baseball thing?" I was like, "Oh, that's great. Like, that's for kids." My son would watch Air, and no. So it's very much aimed at an adult crowd. And at that being said, not just an adult crowd, but an adult basketball crowd. If you don't like basketball, you're probably going to not care, even though there's almost no basketball in it. Everything relates to basketball. So I would qualify it as a sports movie. I would have put it in my list had I seen it at the time. I don't know if it would have cracked the top 25, but it would have been one that made like top 50, and I would probably marked it off. But yeah, it's good. You definitely spend some time with it. Have a good time, and then you probably won't think about it again for a while, though.